everybody, it's Brandy, and I am so excited to be able to show you my brand new office wall. This office wall was super fast to build once I figured out the pattern. The pattern was a little difficult to figure out, but I have all the measurements, all the materials, and everything listed below. I've also attached plans down below that will take you to my website where you can print out the measurements and the plans if you need to. It's actually a really simple design in that it's basically a square turned on its side and then connected by these plus designs to create this big pattern. So it's more simple than it looks, which is one of the things I really liked about this pattern, and it was super fast. And then also, I used black paint and I started with a satin finish. I would suggest starting off with a flat or a matte finish. Otherwise, let's jump into the video. Stick with me. I'm excited to show you what I did. Okay, so a lot of you have seen my other video with this peel and stick flooring. It was doing great. I had it up for a year, but then I had some pieces that started to unstick and I didn't want to glue it because we're probably moving. So I ended up just pulling all of this off and doing this simple design so that we can put our house up for sale. I removed all of the nails after that and filled all of the holes. I really like to use DAP Fast and Final spackling for all of my filling of holes throughout our whole house. This stuff does a really good job, dries really fast, and doesn't leave a ton of residue. Then I just lightly sanded it down in the end. And then I began cutting all of my squares that I would need for the entire wall. Now I'm going to show you two methods that I used. The first one was a little more difficult, and then I figured out a much easier way to do this. Okay, so now I have my square for my 45 cuts. It's just a really big square here. It's going to go on the wall in this diamond shape, like this, corner to corner. So what I'm trying to figure out right now is I need to cut these so that they're flat in order to cook another 2x2 to the edge for my pattern. So I'm trying to figure out how much I need to cut off those 45s right there. I'm gonna measure it and see. Once I did some math and fooling around with the pattern, I realized that I needed to cut 5/8 off of that corner. So I kept my 45 angle and used that and set up a stop block to cut 5/8 off of all the corner edges. Okay, so now I've set up a stop block here and I've got my line marked and I've got my two corners laying there sandwiched together. I'm gonna cut that little triangle off and see where I'm at. Okay, here's what I cut, and this is the piece that's gonna need to slide in there. Oh, it's perfect. That's perfect. So now that I've got that marked, it's about 5/8 from the corner. I have my stop block right there already set. Now I just have to sandwich these two pieces together and cut all these corners. Once I have my square set up, I went ahead and marked all my faces and then numbered them. So this one is 4 to 4. This one up here is 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, so forth, to help me keep these in order. And when I go to attach them to the wall, I'll know which pieces go to which pieces. Okay, so here I am cutting those corners off of those pieces, and this is a very effective way. It works just fine, but it's very tedious and it takes a long time. I did come up with a much easier method, and I'm going to show it to you here in just a little bit in this video. So hang in there. This is a real mom life moment. As I'm sanding the wall here, I think every single member of my family came in to talk to me. It was like a 15-minute period. But I'm going to start by framing out the wall. Okay, I just wanted to take a second and explain a little bit about the steps and the process of what I'm doing now. I have filled all the holes with spackle. Everything is done that way. It's dried. I'm going to take my sanding block that I got from Gator, and I'm going to go around and sand down all the spackle so that it's nice and smooth. Then I'm going to take these 1x2s and I'm going to frame out the wall first, and that's how I'm going to start the pattern, just by making a box or a frame around the space. I also want to note that you can get a laser level or make sure you have a pretty long, I have a 4-foot level that I'm using also to mark the center of the wall first, and then you want to horizontally and vertically mark your center and your level. So I already have a line from the last pattern that I did that is down and across. And I'm going to use that to start the pattern off, okay? I'm also going to use one of my favorite tools, my DeWalt nailer. This is just a brad nailer, and I'm using 1.5 inch 18 gauge nails. And I've created a little template which you can print out from my website just to kind of gauge how many diamond shapes you think you're going to need for your space. My wall is 9 feet high and 6 feet to the corner, and I wrap it around another 3 feet. So here I'm just nailing the 1x2s directly to the wall, all the way up and across the top. I'm not going to use any glue. I want this to be easily removable for whoever moves into this place, but the caulking and nails should hold it just fine. It seemed really crazy until I get it up on the wall. I was vacuuming up everything I sanded, so my vacuum's there. But essentially, I've laid this out on the carpet, and basically, when you look at it this way, it's just squares with lines coming out of each point. But I'm going to put it on an angle like this, which will then create hexagon shapes around each diamond once it's on the wall. So it's a very simple square that if you just put on the wall at an angle, gives you this really cool, crazy pattern. And one of the reasons I like this is because it's fairly simple, but it looks really intricate once it's up on the wall. So I'm gonna start putting up my first square and my second square and kind of go down the first line as far as I can. So I decided to start this pattern about 11 inches down from the molding at the top of the wall. I found this to be a much easier process once the first 2 diamonds or that first line was all attached. And then I found that if I attached the X's first and all the straight edges from each diamond, it made the second diamond easier to attach and to keep aligned. I ended up removing that first diamond and reattaching it because it wasn't quite straight. As you can see, I ended up having to remove this diamond as well because it wasn't quite aligned, and this is where I learned that adding the straight edges first really helped keep my diamonds in line. So one of the reasons I absolutely love having smart friends is because they can correct, oh my gosh, I was looking for this pencil everywhere. They can correct your math and make things easier. So I'm gonna flip you around and show you a way easier way to cut these diamonds or squares or however you wanna look at it. This will make it much simpler, more simple. Oh geez. Okay, so here is how I was cutting them. I was cutting them on a 45 and then flipping them over and cutting again at a 45 to create this angle because I'm crazy and math is hard. So I had a friend who said, why are you doing that? This is what you should be doing. You should be taking your 1x2 all the way down and making one 45 cut. She's absolutely right. And then we would have shorter pieces here and here to create the square. So I went ahead and made a jig that fits the same pattern perfectly. And basically it's just 5/8 from the corner. So from this corner, I measured in 5/8 and that's where I get my 45 angle. So I'll show you how it lines up here perfectly. See, so now I've created this jig and I'm gonna cut all my pieces. I'm gonna line the jig up on them, make my little 45 line, and I'll cut those pieces out. I have to make 4 more diamonds. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting 8 pieces like this at, they're each, I have to look at my measurements, but I believe they're 16, yes, they're 16 and 7/8 long. So, woo, yay for easy stuff. Look at that, so much less cutting and so much easier to create these diamond pieces. Then I just needed to cut all the straight pieces to go in between the 2 pieces that had the 45 cuts. I recommend this method each time. Now towards the end, when you have all your big pieces on the wall, you will have some small cuts that you'll probably need to measure first and cut. There's a lot of running back and forth between the miter saw and the wall for these last little pieces, but totally worth it in the end. Then I used some dab wood filler to fill in all of these seams and edges just so it'd be a nice smooth finish, and sanded it down before painting with primer. I also filled all the nail holes that were in each piece. Then I began the wrapping around process, and this was easier than I thought it would be. I just found where each diamond was ending and continued the diamond pattern on the other side. After that was all done, I used some caulk and caulked all the edges on the inside of the pattern. This just helps it to adhere and attach better, and it also makes the finish look so much more professional. Once that was all done and everything was filled and sanded, I decided to prime. And yes, I am spraying some Bullseye primer inside my house. I felt like my walls and my ceiling are white, and this would make the process go so much faster. I love Bullseye primer. I use it on every project, covers and fills and levels really well. And then I just lightly sand in between painting and primer. Okay, the spray paint is dry, and I've taken a 220 sanding sponge and kind of just gone over everything really quickly, and I'm getting ready to put the actual coat on now. And I just wanted to throw this out there. When I paint, I usually will take my paint pan and I will put foil all through it, and I use the foil the whole time. Well, for each coat, I'll use a new piece of foil. That way I can just wrap everything up and throw it away, and I don't have as much cleaning and washing to do. And I always get nervous about washing paint in my sink. I don't know why, but this way I can just toss it. And then I'm gonna be using this little 2-inch roller that I really like. I have a 4-inch foam roller as well that I'll use for in the middle parts. And then a cut-in brush that I'll use for all the tops and all the edges. I'll start with the edges first, then I'll do the front parts of the design, and then I'll do the in the middle parts. The holes. I don't know what to call them. Anyway, let's paint. Okay, and that's it. That is how I created this matte, awesome office wall. It's just a feature wall. I've never used black paint before, but I decided to try it here because of a friend of mine who had suggested it on Instagram, and I love it. It really pops. I have a ton of natural light in this room, which makes the black not seem as overwhelming. So it turned out great. I'm really happy with it. If you wanted to, another option would be to skim mud your wall first so you don't get these little inlays. You see the pattern. I have an orange peel texture to my walls, and that's what you're seeing here. So if you have a texture to your walls and that's gonna drive you crazy, you might wanna put something behind it or do a skim set so that you have a nice flat wall to begin with. I didn't really care so much, and I like it as it is. Anyway, if you guys have questions, drop them in the boxes below, the comment section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I have a lot of really great and fun projects coming up. We are all in our homes at this moment in time because of coronavirus. So I went and stocked up on a whole bunch of materials to bring some really fun videos for you guys. So stick around, and thanks for watching.